Hi there.
Hey, how are you, Kim?
Good. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, you know what? I got to tell you something. The new name of your company, and then I look back in your history before your MDF, and you had the same company name.
Oh,
I
of
know. I never said are they. It's the same name.
of SOVRA?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I updated that. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
no, I updated that. No, 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 no. I was gonna say, did I? Because back in the day, so BidNet, which is part of the SOVRA overarching, my first ever job out of college. Well, no, sorry, my second ever job out of college was a company called Bidville. It was completely different, and it was all about like online auctions.
Right.
And we were kind of a competitor to eBay, but not really. In the early 2000s, and so when I then started working for MDF and we had BidNet, I was like, oh my gosh, it's full circle, like to the bid something. So I thought that's what you were talking about, but no,
Oh, okay. There you go.
no, I
Well,
went back in time and updated SOVRA.
you're a time traveler. That's
I
it.
am.
Well, you know what? I know a lot about all the different pieces in the company. You know, you've been around 40 years. You pick up a few things. So I always like to go into these conversations as if I'm a blank board. In other words, uh, remove any preconceived thoughts or ideas other than what I know about what's going on in the industry and has gone on, and turn it over to you and become all ears.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, we'll start with just the reason why of SOVRA, right? I think that the initial uh, first reactions are for ourselves, which I hate saying because I'm one of those people that we do everything for the customer and for the industry. But that's the mid gain is for them. First, we kind of have to help ourselves, which is why we had these multiple brands, and it's gone beyond just Merck's and BidNet and Periscope. There's also vendor registry, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. So over the years, MDF has acquired a lot of different platforms and solutions to help the entire public procurement ecosystem. So on the buyer side and the supplier side. What we're really looking to do is to have that be one thing. Does not mean we're getting rid of the Periscope technology or the BidNet Mercs technology. It just means that it's going to save us a lot of development work to have them utilizing the same uh, platform. And I'm going to be honest, I don't even know what that is. I'm not a very technical person, but I can get you that information. So that's one of the first things is to update all of our technology to be using the same type of coding and development so that all of our developers can work across everything and can work to really getting uh, the updates to the site faster for our customers and their needs. So that's one thing. Also, from just marketing, support, everything else aspect, having to do things 3 different times, one branded as Periscope, one is VidNet, one is Mercs, it takes up a lot of resources and time. And so now with this change, we're going to be able to really deliver our messaging and that thought leadership in public procurement, both on the supplier side and the buyer side, as one thing, right? And then, so that's why I say it's kind of for us at first, but the end goal is to deliver more faster and better to our customers and to our future customers. So that's really the overall goal. Um, it's something that when we've wanted to do for a while, but when KKR came into the picture back in April, they were really able to make it happen with some needed investments on the technology side and investments in the okay from that leadership on the product and branding side as well.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's overarching
sorry to
kind of,
interrupt, just so I've got
yeah.
it clear. It's really this the first of it, and it's interesting because I appreciate that it's for ourselves. You're creating a unified message, a unified vision. You're bringing together all these different elements and components, saying, okay, enough being separate companies. Let's bring them all together, first of all, and get that conceptual understanding in place, so we're all hooked up. I mean, that's the first thing I take away. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, no, that's right. And like I said, I hate saying that. I hate being about us, but it needs to be about us for a moment before we can turn it back and make it about the customer.
Right.
It's going to allow us to do things like have a user conference, in which, before we would have had to have 7 different user conferences with all these different brands. It allows us to pave the way for us to really just talk to a customer and find out what their needs are without pigeonholing them first into one technology or the other technology, because the brands and the technology behind those previous brands are different. One is more geared towards your out of the box. I need to accept bid submissions. I need to do bid evaluations online. I need a rudimentary contract management solution, and that's kind of it. I need something out of the box, quick to implement in 2 weeks, and get on my way. And the other definitely has more customization involved, etc. Down to the level of DEI and other initiatives, and spend and analytics and things like that. So it really allows us to talk to that customer, and to be able to find out what their real needs are, and be able to show them a multitude of solutions. One of the other things that we actually have already started and are going to be doing more is integrating our solutions. So not merging them into one, but with the technology to be able to take some of those out of the box things on, for example, the BidNet platform, and to utilize we have hundreds of thousands of suppliers that are registered on that platform, and to be able to utilize those things with also the technically called Periscope solution, on my buyer end, right? So me and my team can utilize everything we need from the spend analytics, but be connected to that vast supplier database and some of those quick and easy wins. So we've already started that as well. But we're not planning on putting them in, combining the technologies, if that makes sense. Just,
Okay.
at least not in the short term.
There's a couple of different thoughts that come to mind. And I've written about this over the years. Oracle, for example, when they acquired the different elements theirs was an acquire and assimilate. And ultimately what they did with PeopleSoft and JD Edwards, et cetera, is alienate the previous community of PeopleSoft users, saying, what are you doing? And the end result was the vision had merits, but the technology to link them together, that's the key part of all of this is the continuity. And I mean, going back, I mean, people talk about orchestration now and intake. When I talked about it, it was the Meta Prize, and they used to call it service-oriented architecture, and everything was going to fit together. But over the last 40 years, outside of Microsoft Office, and this is going to be an interesting thing for you, outside of Microsoft Office, who, by the way, they wanted to buy SAP way back in early 2000s because they thought we're getting end user resistance, but everyone uses the Office, the suite of Office, etc. So if we create that pathway of users, we won't have change management, or as much change management. And that sort of is the Mendocino project, and then became Duet, and then it just fell apart. But outside of Microsoft, in their own office, no one's been able to do this successfully. That's the real point. And so, and by the way, when I'm speaking, probably about the top 20-25% of my readers are CPOs, CEOs, CFOs. And CIOs. And so the questions that I'm asking are sort of echoing what they're asking. They're looking at this beyond the scope of, as you say, this initial important step of unifying the messaging and the vision. and getting into the nuts and bolts, how do you make that happen? How do you address those disconnects when you have so many disparate parts? And then when you look at it, you know, yeah, we've talked about KKR, Excel KKR, we talked about KKR and all of those things. I understand that they're a mover and shaker, the Nabisco people. They're the ones who acquired Nabisco. You know the long history of the organization. They don't necessarily have the depth of expertise or experience, but they do have the business sense to understand what needs to be done and what's the next step. So obviously they're investing simply because they know there could be a great opportunity to finally create a true collaborative, communicative Metaprise suite. They know that. I don't think they waste their money, that's for sure. But my biggest concern again is that the answers that I'm being, or questions I'm being asked and answers to come up with to the C-suites are, yeah, but how come this is going to be different? Why will this be different than the last 40 years? Why will it not? Why will it succeed where orchestration and whatnot haven't succeeded in the past? That's really the meat and potatoes for me. I get your vision. I understand it. I appreciate it. I like Terry a whole lot. I know, you know, you probably talked with him. You know, I've had my critiquing of Periscope and different things because I've been involved in the public sector for a very, very long time. And again, I'm only reflecting what the people who look to me for advice ask. And that's the big question is great idea, but how does it manifest itself? How do we know it's going to work? How do we know the intricacies of how they're going to bring it together and connect? And it's during a very tough time. What I'm asking you point blank. It's during a tough time, Kim, because we're entering in 2025 a period of what will be known as the AI bubble burst, where 75% of those logos on the maps are going to be gone, much like the .com boom. They're not funded. I know companies who are well known, branded, international, who've walked back from their Gen AI strategy and their AI strategy. So there's a certain amount of cynicism and skepticism that is out there in the marketplace. So what do you say about that? I mean, no one's going to argue with your vision, and I like it. You know, from a marketing standpoint, from a writing standpoint, I think it's great. But from the execution standpoint, you're going to say it's never been done before.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a crystal ball, right?
Okay.
So the 3-year plan has really been expedited. We originally, before KKR came on board, we had this 3 to 4 year plan to do this and something similar, and that's been expedited, and that investment that's been made in our development team and other teams to get it done faster is happening. I think big conversations with our customers and focusing on where those integration points are that they need, and not focusing on other things, not focusing on potentially that big shiny thing right now that is
Right.
this or that, and wasting our time and energy on that, and really getting down to what the public sector needs are with its purpose-built public procurement focused
Right.
ideas. And I think that's what's going to guide us through the next couple of years as we do this, but I don't have a crystal ball. Do I
Right.
hope it works? Of course I do, but I can't sit here and guarantee
Right.
that it will.
No, and I
Um,
appreciate that. I appreciate that frankness. You know, there's been so few successful public sector initiatives. Virginia's EVA program is one. The Scottish government one worked out well, but very few do work out. And oops, sorry about that.
no worries.
So here's the thing. If you look at that, let me turn to NASPO, for example. Now, you know who they are.
Of course.
Bob Sievert's the CIO. He's come from Virginia, etc. What is NASPO's point of view on all of this? How much are you engaging with them? Because you know they also launched. Remember about a decade ago they launched an initiative to try to consolidate everyone, the Western Alliance or whatever, and that just fell apart. I mean, realistically speaking. So where do you tap into that? Because there's certainly they're a major influencer at the state level, where I think a lot of the initiative breakthroughs are going to happen. I mean, Karen Evans, I remember interviewing her. She was the CIO for the federal government, and talking about how when things go off the rails and how challenging it can be. And municipalities are certainly different, but I look at the states and NASPO as being a key focal point to be able to develop and be guided by that. How is that relationship?
So that relationship right now is good. We have a NASPO contract, a value point contract. We also know that I know Bob talks with all of our members, our current state customers on a regular basis. I think it's a monthly meeting with our customers. We've tried to be involved in that to help guide that conversation. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's also why this new brand, and again going back to KKR, we will be able to now have a better opportunity to bring not only our state customers and potential customers in, but together with the locals, because that is one thing we've been very successful at in states like New Jersey and other state customers, is bringing that state system of making it available to the locals, not only for them to be able to easily buy off contracts through our marketplace, but also giving them the same technology and the same insights to their own data as the state has for no charge for them. And so I think those types of things are going to continue with NASPO, at least on the value point side. Their dive into their new local government focus. And I think we have a lot of presence there and that connection. Oftentimes in the industry, locals and states want to be kept separate. It's funny that you bring up EVA, which I agree, great program. I was just talking with someone from locally, a county in Virginia, who knows that they have access to the system for free, but they hate it and they want to do their own thing. So there's always that local state. It's just something, call it change management, call it I want to do my own thing and be, I have my
Empire
own
builder.
commissioner. Yeah, exactly.
Empire. I mean, North Carolina with Ariba had at your service. And what they did is, rather than try to enforce the centralized plan, I thought they took a very reasonable approach many years ago, where they said, okay, especially at colleges, higher education, they have their own independent street. They said, we're not going to force you to use the at your service, but what we want to do is create a connection with at your service so that you have your bids and that you check with us at least, so we can find out, are we getting the best result for you? Or if not, we want to know about that. And I thought it was very interesting, and at the time, many years ago, a very innovative approach, because you're not enforcing compliance with the technology. What you're doing is focusing on communication and collaboration to let the numbers actually do the talking, to let the service do the talking. And I thought that one had a really good chance to succeed, but it didn't. And to your point, there's this fiefdom mentality that people resist. And that, okay, now there's another thing in terms of thinking. What role do organizations like KPMG or Deloitte or anything have in terms of client introductions and implementations? And I'm gonna forewarn you, they've had huge problems with doing that, because they have an A team that sells, and then their jobs go on to the next opportunity, and you get the B, C, D, E chain. And there was a massive failure with a KPMG-led initiative down in Santa Clara. So, like, what role do you see these organizations playing, or are you direct and it's all going to be through your combined in an innovative group of companies, like into a single
Correct. Vision? Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that really is a key differentiator for us, especially we're talking about those large states and implementations, is that we do everything in-house. And so that team, we know our product, we know it's everything that it can do. We work with that customer from day one to make certain that change management goes as smoothly as possible. And so I think that is a key differentiator with us, is that we do that that implementation through our services, not only upon initial, but any change that's moving forward as well. That's also allowed us to set up really great relationships with the organizations themselves and really learn about what their true pain points are, bring that back to our development team, not only through the services side of things, but what we can offer across the board to everyone through the SaaS solutions. And it's also allowed us to do some, I want to say, outside of software things. I'll go back to Oregon or New Jersey. Some of the things that we do are more in that spend optimization phrase, so that we do have the technology to support that, but we also go in with a team and manage those self-funded dollars that they're getting back. So we
Right.
take away some of the pain points that they don't have the support team to uh, go after vendors to collect their fees, and to ensure that, okay, this is all right. It says that I should be collecting X amount of money from this supplier. Um, where is that invoice? Where is that communication? For those fees that go back now to the state. And so that is one of the things that we're looking at exploring even more, as we have a great support services team outside of even the implementation, that we've started to roll out to some other interested parties, to take over that piece, because we know it so well. So I think that's another thing that having everything in-house can do.
So you
Um,
provide, basically, one of the first thoughts that came to my mind as I was listening to you, Kim, is that what you're doing is you're maintaining individuality, but you're consolidating it. So when you're going into Oregon or New Jersey or California or wherever you're going, because I know states want to be the originator of their own success, not a
yeah.
copy of somebody else's success. I saw this with Eva, where people would go and watch and then try to do it on their own. You're that consolidation point of independent stakeholders here. Let's say, so you go into Colorado, you'll go into different states, and you'll be able to say, we can meet your requirements as it relates to Colorado, but we have this centralized nerve center, maybe an operating system for I'll call it that, for lack of a better word, that will bring everything together so that there'll still be a cohesive central point that can benefit everyone. I mean, that's what I'm taking away. Is that reasonable?
I think it is. So there's really two ways of thinking. We customize it to whatever your needs are, right? So I'll bring it back to beyond a state level. We actually have a group of like-minded counties in New York that right now have gotten together, and they want to do something a little different on this side. So we're working with them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at the state level, but 100% on your regional approach, right? What happens in Oregon is definitely different than what happens in New Jersey. However, that being said, there's a lot of similarities and crossover.
Right.
So, yes, tapping into that knowledge of what other people are doing and the technology that's helping them do that and what we've done for other people, but being able to integrate it specifically to those needs, because uh, Colorado, you brought up Colorado's specific needs, especially with different local vendors and minority vendors, are very different than in a New Jersey or Massachusetts, for example. They're just completely different paths, or Arkansas, which is another one of our customers, or Hawaii. So everyone's very different. But yes, we have the ability to utilize the core findings from other customers and bring that in, not only on the technology aspect of what's worked, but also on those services aspect of what's worked for, uh, the fee collection, the tapping into the larger supplier database, the spend analysis. There was one customer who we they didn't even know across all their different departments at the state level. They had statewide contracts with suppliers, and they actually had a fee that they were collecting on those. But then they found, or we came in and found, that there were different departments that had other contracts with those same suppliers that they were paying at a different rate, and the state wasn't then receiving those fees because it was done directly through the department. And so that type of information, experience, and insight that we can give to our new customers is kind of that across the board level that you were talking about.
Something that North Carolina was trying to do. Independent yet consolidated. Okay, let's take it one more, and I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no problem.
With regard to competitors, like for example, Arizona went with Evalua. And you know that was something no one's originally, when it happened, didn't see it coming. They thought CGI big or whatever. How do you deal with competing systems in the different states? Is there going to be, I mean, do you compete against them? Features, functions, benefits? Do you sell the vision of consolidation? If that consolidation is a key selling part, how do they, if they've already got something in place, incorporating yours? You know, I go back to the thing about an operating system, because an operating system is agnostic, largely speaking. So what do you do in states where they're already embedded? Is there a plan as part of this consolidation to be able to without collaboration with an evaluator or whatever, be able to consolidate that kind of information? Because, you know, switching costs have always been a concern for everyone. I mean, how do you deal with that on that basis?
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question, because you asked lots of questions in there. I mean, I think, first of all, yeah, we definitely have competitors in this landscape. Ivalua is one of them. We have different products, different mindsets, right? Again, some of the differentiators I talked about before with the implementation, we take it from start to finish and all the way through and help with that change management. You don't switch providers upon signing the contract to someone else that you've never talked to a team that doesn't know you. And also the fact that we are really just public procurement focused. I know Ivalua has a public procurement team. They're great people. I like them a lot personally. You know, you get to know your competitors out in the space.
Yes.
But, you know, we have an entire team from our, uh, you know, from Terry and our, CGO and our COO down to our development team, our support team. They're strictly focused on the public sector. So I think that's another big thing. As far as how do we handle that, you know, you're right that the change is hard. Right. I think us offering some of these services may, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think that we've tried to go in to a state that has a competitor that does everything A to Z, that we competed for and potentially lost that RFP with one of our new service offerings. But I do think that's a way to build that trust, to build that, hey, we can help you with your spend optimization. We can help you with receiving that. I think there are 34 states that collect a fee from their suppliers for statewide contracts. And so that is a place that we are looking at potentially moving more and more into with that. So I can see that, but you know, I don't think there would be any kind of direct crossover there. We are more focused on, and again, at the state level, this isn't really a thing, but even at the large county level, there are a lot of large counties that are pigeonholed into an ERP system for their procurement needs, because finance made that decision to go with this larger ERP that had this procurement chunk, right? And so that is more of that focus there, is taking over that piece, because we are purpose built for the public sector, and showing the procurement team how that can easily integrate, and but yet they can still get everything that they need.
Got
So
it.
hopefully that makes sense.
No, that's a good explanation. I mean, the past history with the city of Houston, etc., the failure rate has been high in initiatives. Now, one of the things that tweaked my interest with what you just said about the pay-to-play mentality that's out there. Corinne Pullman, who's VP for the CFIB, Canadian Federation of Independent Business, over the years, I've interviewed her many times, and she said this SMEs don't even go near government business anymore. Because it's, even though it was automated, so you could say, okay, this is the service, this, and this, and this, they said it wasn't worth the cycles for them to respond to these bids, which was a big part of it. In the U.S., and Judy Brad and Al Gordon, who used to be an advisor to the original Governor Cuomo, said that 95% of RFP winners are decided before the RFP is actually issued. Not that there's anything nefarious there, but what Judy Brad calls it is the effort to build what's known as legitimate preference. And small companies can do it as well as big companies. Invest in the relationship, invest in the rapport, and you get that pocket of place where you get all those different successes. I mean, those are all challenges to not only an overall initiative, but also at a local level in that consolidation part. I mean, and I know this is early, so if you're saying from answering, I understand it because there's a lot going on. But I mean, how do you plan to address that reality out there? Is that you first of all have to win the hearts and souls of these suppliers who have walked away in many instances. You have to look at the engagement level of the bid distribution and win distribution. Many of them are low percentages. So they're saying, 80-20, 80% of the business goes to 20% of the supply base. And we automate it. All we do is automate to say, well, it's fair to everyone. Everyone's getting the information at the same time. I mean, have you thought that far ahead? Because that's certainly beyond technology and that's beyond a company. But that's a reality that contributes to a high rate of failure.
100%. I mean, I think it all starts with education, right? And educating the supplier base, and they're going back and educating the buyers. So one of the things I'll share with you a screen real quickly. I just spoke on this topic last week at NIGP Forum with practitioners, is really understanding why people aren't bidding. So we did this survey to a large group of suppliers, both that were current registered vendors and we're not vendors anymore. We're not registered anymore, had kind of fallen off. And, ask them, why have they not bid over the past year on a solicitation? And these were the reasonings. And so some of these, obviously this wasn't aware the opportunity existed until it was too late. That's an easy fix. There's no resources or lack of time to respond. Is a big one that I think we can easily fix with some help through the practitioners themselves. But through all of that, what I'm trying to say is I think it boils down to education. So in the public procurement sector, cooperatives have jumped dramatically up. And so a lot of that buying now is done through that cooperative, a lot more of a percentage wide than was previously, even like 5-10 years ago. That's one thing. But what those cooperatives aren't doing is focusing on those small, like you said, local vendors. So one of the things I'm doing is going out and talking to a lot of vendors, telling them that cooperatives exist, even though that kind of hurts some parts, but I think it helps the vendor as a whole, telling them those cooperatives exist, and then talking to them also about anything that's under threshold. And a lot of those small businesses really can get their foot in the door with non-RFP, right? If I'm a small business, I can't, I may not have the resources to be able to afford a $3 million contract with the state. Right. Because I would have to buy all these different supplies, hire all these new people to fulfill that. But what I can do is I can bid on something, or I can respond to something that's under that 50K threshold. So we've been working with a lot of our procurement professionals and our buying organizations to show them the benefits of taking those under threshold things online, either through a marketplace that is already contracted, but allowing more of those small open contracts to small businesses, or through our platform with just simply RFQs and quick quotes. And there's a small city, the city of Wheat Ridge in Colorado, that has really just taken this to the next level. They have worked on a complete process change with all of their end users, that now instead of the end user going out and making those phone calls to their 2 or 3 buddies, or people they've used along the way, and in past, to get a quote for something that's under a specific dollar amount, they've now have to send that through the city procurement team. And within 72 hours, the team then has responses, electronic responses from a vendor pool that has grown, from new local and diverse vendors that they've never been able to do stuff with before. And they have a nice little printout and can make that decision and award that quick quote, within a short period of time, less time probably than they would have before. So it's a real kind of success story that we're trying to really get out there, and different organizations, we're seeing them do more and more. So I don't know, that kind of
that more than answered the question.
Okay, good.
And again, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but as I'm listening to you, one of the things that rings very true with me is that you first of all have an understanding of the problems that are out there, the challenges that organizations face. I often talk about agent-based modeling versus equation-based, leading with people, process, understanding versus equation-based of leading with technology, process, people kind of thing. So it sounds like you have a really good foundation of that fundamental understanding of what problems you're going to solve. So you're not just going out there saying, here's a new brand. We consolidated all of this under one logo, and we're going to push this product here and that product there. You're not commoditizing it. You're actually moving more into, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but almost like a consultative approach to be able to understand what needs to be done. And then as that goes, that will shape the technology's evolution more than here's the technology, now we're going to shape how you do business. I mean, that's
Right.
what I get from that.
I think that's, you're not off. I think it's a stretch to say that we're a consultant, because we're not. We consult our customers and help.
On a consulting role, though.
Correct.
You're not going in there with features, functions, and benefits.
Right.
You're going there because ultimately somebody has to consult with these organizations, which is why I asked about KPMG and everyone else. And most of those organizations don't have the disconnect of the experience that you just talked about. Why don't they bid? Why are they bidding? So more and more organizations have to move from that we're a solution provider into we're a problem solver. We're in that regard, you're sort of consulting to that large degree rather than turning it over and somebody bring it to you and say, okay, now here, make it work. That's what I think the direction you're moving in. I'm not saying you're there yet, but I think that's the direction you're moving in.
Yeah, and I think that's the direction we need to for this space. I think that yes, you're right. That's the direction we're moving towards. I'm not sure we're there yet, but we're getting there, and we're trying to. And we're really trying to bridge also the full spectrum, from that buyer and supplier and back over. Because the way I look at the procurement world and ecosystem is that suppliers are a big part of it, and often left out of the equation when the entity is making a decision for their procurement process. And so I think that's a really important key, in factoring on all this, is how, because it's a change for their supplier community too. And oftentimes that's not considered. And so when we do onboarding and training, we obviously don't only do that change management and help and training for the procurement professionals or contract professionals on the entity side, but we also do it for their supplier community as well. And so I do think what you said is true. I like it better than how I've been pitching it, which is more educational based, but we are that consulting arm, because we do want to help solve the problem, and we may not always be the right fit. Right? Like we may not, depending on what their needs are, we may not be the right fit. But we're trying to be, and we're trying to learn from each experience that we're not the right fit, what do we need to change with our technology to be able to capture that next time it comes around.
So your company is the central brain of multiple parts that you're all dealing on the same page at the same time with the same values and the same goals. That's really what it comes down to. You're not consolidating companies, you're consolidating a way of doing business. That's really what I'm seeing here.
Correct. Yes, 100%. And we're making it more about that customer's needs and then saying, okay, based on your needs, out of our array of solutions that we have, here's where we think you fit best, and let's tell you why, and let's show you how this could work within your day-to-day processes and your long-term goals and strategies.
Perfect. Kim, listen, I appreciate your time. I'm going to share this interview with my followers, etc.
Oh,
Because
okay,
quite frankly,
perfect.
the sincerity is important. The authenticity of what's coming across is important. You know, there wasn't a here, let's show you how something works demo type of thing. It was basically, this is the business plan, this is the stage we're at. So I'm going to share this. Again, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to sort of put my thinking or thoughts aside and give you that platform. So I hope I give you a fair ear. I think you're doing some things right and going in the right direction.
Good. Well, we think so too. I mean, I think, as I said, this first step with SOVRA is really a little bit more about us to get everything focused so that we can make it all about the customer and what they need.
Okay, well, let's stay in touch. Say hi to
Yes,
Carrie.
for sure. I will.
And I appreciate your time today. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.